So when you first launch Unity, you'll be presented with a window, as here, with any previous projects that have been opened and the opportunity to create a new project, which what we'll do now. Give the new project a name. Once the new project opens, you'll have a layout as here. This isn't the default layout. The default layout will look like this. Go to Layouts, Default, and that's what you get unless you change the layouts preferences yourself. I'm going to go back to the 2x3 layout. So out of the box we have a main camera and a directional light created for us, and what I'm going to do now is to load in a 3D object. Load in a plane. The next thing I'm going to do is add a material to that object. So under Assets, Create Material, and in my new material name I'm going to call it green. That's the color I'm going to make, and if I click the swatch I can select the green area in the swatch and green color. So I've created a green material there, and all I do to make the plane green is to drag the material over onto the plane object, and here we are. So that's how you add a material to an object in Unity 3D. The next thing I'm going to do is create a cube, 3D object cube. And again, everything gets created at the origin. The origin is the center of the X, Y and Z plane, X being red, Y being yellow and Z being blue. So if I wanted to move that object I could drag the Y gizmo and bring it up onto the plane. I'm going to call this red cube because that's the color I'm going to give it when I add a material. And so again I'm going to, from my assets, create material, call this one red, get a red color from the swatch there. So that's my red color, put it down there somewhere. So that's my material, add it to the cube. There we are. So with the plane and the red cube object in our scene, I'm going to show you how to use some basic navigational techniques in Unity 3D to be able to view the objects, zoom, pan and rotate. So if I hold down the Alt key and the left mouse button, I can rotate my viewpoint. I'm not rotating the object, I'm actually moving the camera. I'm what's called tumbling the camera in the scene view. If I hold down the middle mouse button, then I'm panning the camera in the scene view. And finally, by holding down the right mouse button as well as the Alt key, I can zoom in and out of the scene view. All objects in the hierarchy are in the scene. So when I select an object in the hierarchy, the object is then shown selected in the scene. So if I select the red cube becomes selected in the scene. And when I've selected the red cube, its properties will appear in the inspector window. So if I select the plane's properties appear, its position here in the scene, and other aspects of the plane, such as the material that's added to it that we created earlier. If I select the red cube, then again I can see the position of the object in the scene in terms of its X, Y and Z position, also any scale on the object and any rotation values on the object. Another useful navigation technique in Unity 3D is where you want to zoom in on a particular object. To do that, you select the object that you want to zoom in on in the hierarchy, make sure your mouse cursor is over the scene window, and then press F on the keyboard. And that's what frames the object in the scene view. So if I want to frame the plane object in the scene view, I select plane in the hierarchy, make sure my mouse cursor is over the scene window, and press the F key. And then I can zoom in as required. So we've looked at the scene window, the hierarchy window, the inspector window, and finally in this layout we have the project window. The project window includes everything that is involved in building the scene. Some assets that we've created here, such as the two materials, and other 3D assets that you create in your work to build your scene. The final window to look at is the game window. The game window displays the viewpoint of the camera in the scene. So the controls here enable us to run the scene and interact with any objects in the scene in real time, or see objects moving in real time in the scene. Now this is a static scene we've created. So the next thing I'm going to do is to import a script written in C#, attach it to the cube value around its y-axis and make it spin. So I go to Assets, Import New Asset, and navigate to where I know the script will be. Import. The C# script is now displayed in the project window. So open the script. So looking at this script, we've got the name of the class, spin. It's essential that the internal name matches the external name, spin here, spin there. This is called a method start. Any initialization would normally be made here in this method. And then we've got our second method here called update. Now the update method gets called every frame of the game. So if the frame rate of the game is 60 frames per second, then this method's getting called 60 times every second. So we've got a code statement here, transform.rotate, and some values, 0, 1 and 0. This code statement will have the effect of rotating any object that the script is attached to in the scene once you run the scene. And these values here represent the X, the Y and the Z axis. So we've got one value here of rotation on the Y axis. The F represents the fact that this is a float value and you need to put that in, otherwise you'll get a syntax error. So by attaching this script to the cube in the scene, the cube will spin once we run the scene. So now I'm going to attach the script to the red cube. So if I select the red cube in the hierarchy, I can see in the inspector window now I have a script attached to it called spin. Now if I run the scene, after a few moments the red cube is spinning around its y-axis. I switch the scene off. I can choose to maximize on play. This will give me a big screen that will maximize the screen in my display window. So now I'll run the scene again, and there we are. So in this tutorial we've seen how to create a basic project, how to introduce components into the project, apply materials, add a script to an object to make it spin. We've also seen how to navigate the scene using the various facilities available for zoom, pan, rotate